Hello and welcome to the Can I Retire Now podcast with your hosts, Nick Russell and Becky Wagner. I'm your podcast producer, RJ Malik. We've got Nick and Rebecca here. All right, I'm going to throw it to Becky first, right? You're going to tell us what we have lined up, or is it Nick today? Is he going to be the guy introducing what's going on?
Becky gave me the intro today. She let me do the intro so then I can tell us what we're going to talk about, step back, watch the magic happen.
Excellent.
So this is just topical, right? This is something I've had a few of my clients retire recently, or one that's about to retire in a couple of weeks. And I'm running into a lot of the same questions that come from like the nerves of retiring. So the question I get asked is, okay, well, great. I saved, I'm retiring. What do I do now? And it's a big change for people, right? From working 40 hours a week to, for 35, 40 years to what? Like, what do we do Monday morning instead of getting dressed and getting on their way to the office? So what we want to talk about today is what do we do to pass the time? What do we do now that we've successfully financially got there? How do we enjoy the rest of our lives? So, Becky, where do you want to start in that conversation?
All right. Yeah. So we've talked a lot about different money topics up until now. And some of them are really dry and boring and important, but this is kind of a fun episode because we're going to talk about hobbies, what we do to pass the time. And a lot of people think of hobbies as, enjoyable things, but there's actually really important aspects of hobbies and what makes a hobby a good hobby, particularly for retirement. So, Did you know that, Nick?
I didn't. So I am the least prepared for this episode of anyone that we've talked about.
Good. Super.
And my hobbies, I'm willing to share if we want to get into it. And but I'm interested to see where you're going to drive this bus.
Okay. Well, climb aboard. Here we go. All right.
Yeah.
So there was a survey done in 2014 by Wes Moss, and he was studying what makes a retiree happy. And there's a lot of different aspects, right? Financial and, all those things. But one of them was having hobbies. And in particular, he found that retirees, here's your did you know of the week.
We're starting with the did you know right up front?
Did you know right up front.
Man.
We're just going to get to it.
Get ready.
Happy retirees have at least 3.6 hobbies, which is I don't know how you have a partial hobby, but whatever. And unhappy retirees have less than 2. All right. Ooh. So it seems that there is some value in having more than one thing to do in retirement, even more than 2 things to do, right? So you can diversify your time or not get burnt out on something. So at least 3.6 hobbies. And
so what? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No.
I have a question. I was curious, like, what actually makes something a good hobby?
I'm glad you asked. So
okay.
Was
that where you were going?
Yeah, I feel like
on the same page. Finally.
Yes.
All right. There we go. Excellent.
So
feels good.
Hobbies aren't. People are like, oh, I have a hobby because I enjoy it, right? Well, what makes it a good hobby for retirement? There's kind of 4 different parts of a hobby.
Okay.
There's thinking hobbies. Right?
Okay.
So crosswords or strategy games or things like that. There's active or physical hobbies aspects to things. So your walking club or your pickleball or something that keeps you moving like that. Creativity is a big aspect. So you can see this in cooking or in crafting or in painting or something like that.
Yeah, I was going to say painting. Yeah.
And then a really big one, which is a whole separate part of retirement, is actually social.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so being around other people. A big drop-off in leaving a workplace that you've been is losing contact with people on a regular basis, right? You have to go out of your way now to make sure that you surround yourself with people.
And we saw that, actually, we watched, I don't remember the name of it, but that documentary on the Blue Zones, right? Where they talked about one of the key factors was these people just staying active, but also staying social, right?
Yes.
And doing things together as a group that actually helped longevity. and health and well-being, not only satisfying, say, boredom of not having those hobbies. So that's pretty cool. As you were going through those, I was starting to think of like the stuff that we do, even, still in our working years. I think I have a lot of thinking hobbies. Would you say that? Would you say my hobbies are the thinking hobbies?
They're the thinking hobbies.
Yeah. Like
You're
I
a
like to
thinker.
play chess. I like to play cards. I like games and the puzzles and things like that.
Yeah.
I think I find myself attracted to those categories.
Yeah,
But,
which is
yeah.
important. But actually what you can do to take those kinds of hobbies to the next level is make sure you have 2 of those 4 components in a single hobby, actually.
Oh,
So
okay.
out of thinking, active, creative, and social, make sure your hobby has 2 of the 4 of those. So you like to play cards. Maybe you play cards with friends now. Okay,
Well,
so
like we
now
do
it's-
with my mom.
Yeah,
My mom.
so-
I know it's my mom, and it's not like hanging out with friends. But actually, you know what? I take that back. We do a monthly game night with
We do.
all of our friends. So
With
well,
our
not all of
friends.
but there's 4 couples, and one couple hosts for the evening, and they get to pick the game and do dinner and adult beverages and whatnot. And then it rotates between the houses. And we've done that since the beginning of the year we started that.
Yeah,
Was
we
it
made
the-
a point to do that since
Yeah.
the beginning of the year because we wanted to make
Because-
sure we see our friends. And
Yeah.
so there you go. You've taken a thinking hobby and now made it a thinking and social hobby,
social.
which is really important. And sometimes people find that social aspect online. It's not always, it's better face to face, in my personal opinion. But if you are in a place where you can't get together very easy, maybe you join an online community that has some sort of social aspect in terms of playing the games or stuff like that, where you can talk to people. Nick, you do a game night every Tuesday night also.
I do.
We affectionately call it his nerd night at my house because he...
So I was just questioned about this today by 2 of my employees. So we once a month do a team lunch, just an excuse to get out and like spend some time together. And the 2 of them at the same time were like, "Yeah, we're really wondering what Nerd Night is in your calendar." And I'm like, "Okay, this is what Nerd Night is." And it's because these friends of mine who are now friends of friends and all of that, we're in Florida. One of them's in New Jersey. 2 of them are in different parts of Texas. One's in St. Louis, Missouri. And all of a sudden, we can't get together once a month for game night. So what we do is we decided to play community-style games that, we're all busy and most of us are married. Most of us have kids. So if one can't make it, it's still enough that we could still play. And it's allowed me a really nice social outlet, doing something I already enjoy doing. That's separate from, say, you, Becky, and something that I'm more likely to do because I'm not alone doing it.
Yeah. So for
which,
2
yeah,
to
it's
3
been great.
hours every Tuesday night, Nick goes to Nerd Night and plays games on his computers with his
Yep.
friends. He has headphones on just like this.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I can hear him through the door. He gets so excited playing with these games. So
There are things that happen, and excitement ensues.
so
Yeah.
so that's a good hobby. It's a really good hobby.
Yeah.
So
Ageless too, by the way. You can be any age and do that. So yeah.
I'm interested to see how our generation in particular, we're in our early 40s, grew up with video games. So I'm interested to see how that ages with our particular age group into retirement, if that's going to go. Because obviously I don't hear of a lot of 70 plus people playing video games online with their friends.
Your
at
mom
all.
and dad don't bust out the Nintendo
Never
when
once.
when they're
Never
home. Yeah.
once.
To say,
So
but
I'm
your-
interested
but your
to see how
mom-
that goes. So
Your mom does play like puzzle games on her phone. When we were visiting, we all did the connections,
Yes.
and the Wordle is just kind of a fun thing, like, oh, who got it today? And those types of mental activities are not only good for, as a hobby, but good for reducing chances of dementia and Alzheimer's and all of that. They've started to show in studies. So, it'll be interesting. I don't see myself not playing video games in some facet.
that's what I'm saying. I
yeah,
think there's
like-
going to be like video games in the retirement homes in the future.
Yeah.
Like I see it.
I see
happening.
myself playing Mario Kart
Forever.
with our kid when she has kids. Like, I'm going to be
Yeah.
grandpa playing Nintendo. That's
Yeah.
or virtual
Wow, it's
reality
the
at
first time
that
I thought
point.
of that. That's kind of a
Yeah.
cool thing. So
Yeah.
All right. I don't know this as a fact, but I'm gonna hypothesize, Nick.
Okay.
What do you think is one of the biggest growing physical sports in the country right now? That's particularly popular with retirees.
Okay, so I think I know this answer.
Yeah, you should.
Is it pickleball?
It is pickleball.
Pickleball. Okay. I have gotten to play a couple of times with a couple of clients of mine. It is everything I love about ping pong without any of the things I don't like about tennis, which is literally just the running around. So it's physical, but not insane. Like I'm not in technically the best shape of my life at this point.
No.
I'm not.
I could never tell.
That was not necessary.
You're an Adonis.
That was, well, thank you. Thank you. Can we quote that? Can we just clip that moment and that should be the clip for this week. My husband's an Adonis.
Sure.
I have healthy ego. Don't worry about me. But it's great, and it is fast growing, and we're actually trying to put on a little pickleball kind of event with clients. It's just as a fun, again, social activity, but that really hits a couple of those things that you talked about.
It does.
It's active, it's social, and it's something that you can kind of do at your own pace.
Exactly.
It's not an expensive hobby to either get into either, like golf. You gotta buy a whole set of golf clubs or some of that stuff. So yeah, I've really enjoyed it, and I'm not retired yet. So
yeah. It's one of the most popular growing sports in America for the exact reasons that you said. It's social, has a low barrier to entry. It's physical, so people can get out and get some movement. So I think it's really cool. So
can we talk about my favorite low barrier or no barrier to entry hobby?
Yeah, I don't know how many people know about this, and this actually played a role in how I got to know Nick.
Yeah, so it's called geocaching. RJ, have you ever heard of geocaching? We'll use our sample. It's okay if you haven't.
I
have not.
Okay. Yeah.
So what
are you Googling
explain?
it right now while we're
Yeah.
Yes. So okay. Now describing geocaching always makes me sound like a crazy person.
Yeah,
so bear
it's
with
not
me.
easy to describe.
Yeah. So this occurs all around the world. There are 3 million geocaches around the world. It is a GPS-based scavenger hunt, basically. So you can go now. There's a geocache app. It's free to get. I think I pay $30 a year for like the Mac Daddy Cadillac Supreme, whatever. But you can go on your phone, based on GPS. It'll say, hey, there is a hidden container of sorts at this location.
And
the whole idea is to
coordinates.
The coordinates. And then when you get close, you could use a compass to get closer and closer. Some of them are tiny. When I say container, they're an inch by an inch by an inch. It's enough to leave a piece of paper in there for you to initial that you were there. And then you put it back where it was for the next person to find. And some of them, yeah.
Yeah, I want you to imagine a guy that I've known for a couple weeks saying, hey, would you like to go geocaching? And I say, sure. What is it? And he's like, well, we're going to go to this unknown place alone and look for an unknown object. And it'll be a great time. And I like Nick enough to be like, sure, I guess. And
looking back, it sounds a little murdery.
Creepy is a good word.
Yeah.
Creepy.
But super fun. There are aspects of it where there's puzzle ones where you have to like solve a puzzle to get the coordinates. But it is active. You're outside. It's a thinking kind of activity. It's social because you can do it as groups. I know plenty of people who are retirees that do it. It's good with kids. I've taken our daughter out and her friends do it.
I've enjoyed it with my dad. We were on a cruise in the Bahamas. And again, it's horrible to explain. I'm like, Dad, let's go on a bike ride and find this geocache. And he's like, what are we looking for? Well, I don't know. Just ride your bike this way. Apparently, it's this way. And we rode to the other end of an island in the Bahamas, the Disney island, and found a hidden coconut. I mean,
I was going to say it was a
bizarre.
coconut, right?
It was a coconut,
yeah. It was a fake coconut that opens up to be the container.
Yeah.
So some of these things are really wild. I mean, we did that like fishing one with the squirrel in the tree thing. That was like crazy.
Yeah. But
I mean, there's some wild stuff, but I've done it in like 10 different countries. Done it in like 20 different states and have found some of the coolest little weird
Places.
things. Like I went to New Orleans, and one of the geocaches was at the oldest continuously working bar in the entire country. Has been running continuously since like 1820. And it's in New Orleans. And I would have never found that or sat and had a beer there to say that I did that.
So is that the prize then? Because that would be a prize for me.
It's an
finding the
experience.
oldest bar.
Yeah. So the hardest thing about
so-
doing it with kids is you don't keep the thing. You put it back for the next person to find.
So what's the reward?
Pride. So for nerdy
For Nick,
guys like
it's
me,
for statistics.
it's statistics. So they track all of the ones you've logged. They give you a breakdown of like all of these, the sizes you found, the days you found them,
Difficulty of the terrain.
the difficulty. So some of them are like really difficult to find, and so they'll grade them accordingly, like 1 to 5. And
I have walked through a river with Nick to find one. He's put me in creepy
I walked
situations.
with my mom on Christmas Day in New Jersey when she was still living up there. We went to like a park. And it was after Sandy, after the hurricane, the big storm. Yeah. And so we're like walking, and I'm following the line that says it's in front of us. Now, of course, the trail does this. And my poor mom, she just right behind me, and we're just trudging in a straight line like a dope instead of following the trail. And we're going over trees that have fallen down and all this. and my mom, bless her heart, has macular degeneration, has been legally blind since before I was born, can spot a geocache hidden before I do. She's like, I bet you it's behind that tree. And I look and I'm like, son of a gun. It's unbelievable.
Wow.
So it's a good way to get out and see stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's the purpose is to get you out and go to places that you normally wouldn't go.
Yeah.
There's no grand prize.
No. They do some social events around it. We've never really attended those. And there are some that are as simple as like we live in a city. There are ones that are hidden like at the base of a stop sign in a parking lot. Like they're like in the weirdest places. But yeah, it's kind of been a fun thing. I've had some clients do it because they've learned it from me, and a lot with kids. It's kind of a fun.
It's a fun way, especially when you travel. Like if you're not sure what you're supposed to do, you can always look up, is there a geocache here? And you can get out and do stuff. And again, we've gone with our daughter. I've gone with my dad. He's gone with his mom. We've gone with friends. And it's just a really cool hobby to have. So
Very cool.
Recommend geocaching. Cool.
Yeah, so there you go. There's my secret weird.
You'd probably need to go with someone that's been though before, so you can actually see. It's weird because the object's different every time. So again, it's really hard to describe. But
like, what are we looking for? Could be anything about this big that can hold stuff, hold a piece of paper, and a pencil. Yeah. So
I've learned something new today. Thank you.
Well, that was the plan. That was the plan.
So yeah, there are a lot of other probably more common hobbies out there, right? So I looked up the most popular hobbies among retirees, and none will surprise you, right? Woodworking, bird watching, cooking, crafting, golf, right? We know all these things. I read a cool way to have a cooking hobby is to have a cookbook club. I just read about this. I thought it was neat. You find a couple people, and everyone cooks a dish from the same cookbook, and you bring it to dinner. So it kind of like you get to try out more than one recipe from a new cookbook or something. So there's a lot of really cool hobbies. I think it's amazing. And my personal tidbit about hobbies is everyone thinks, and everyone being my husband, Nick, right here, when you decide you're going to do something, you need to be all in. Okay, so like there's been more than one instance of this in my house, and every time I'm getting more familiar with it, and I just have to take a deep breath. Nick's like, I've decided I'm going to make my own bread, and then like there's 6 months in my house where we accumulate every possible tidbit, ingredient possible related to cooking bread, and we go like super deep. He goes super deep into cooking bread.
First of all, you didn't like that because I made healthy bread. Okay. That's the problem.
All right. Well,
if it was like sugary,
we don't need to chew oatmeal in our bread.
It was above average for me never having baked. So
but anyway, but you do it with bike. You've done it before.
I do,
anyway,
yeah.
It's a common thing to do, right? We all want to be good at what we do, and that's how sometimes you develop enjoyment from developing skill, and all for it. But my personal take on things is sometimes I get more enjoyment when it's seasonal, right? So a good example of this is gardening. You garden for a certain period of the year, and then you take a break, and you're rest up and renewed for a new season of gardening or the next time, or and stuff like that. So I think it's important for people to keep balance in their life and not become, the person that I love golf. Everything I do is golf. You know what I mean? So if you've, like that, you're getting like the golf club ornaments. Like that's who you are now, is golfing. So my personal opinion on hobbies is great. If you have a hobby that's year round and everything, I think that's wonderful. But I think there's also a real beauty in seasons and seasonality, and I actually think it helps pass the time a little bit, right? And let you rest, and again, like I said, renew your interest, get you excited about something, because it's not day old, we're doing this day in, day out. We get up, we cook, we go to bed, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, it's the first day of spring, or the final frost has passed, we can plant the flowers, like, whoa. So I'm an advocate for seasonal type of things, and turning over new leaves and developing interest over time and things like that. There's nothing wrong with the way Nick does it. Nick goes both feet.
I just go ham.
Gas pedal down. Yeah.
Becky knows one of my biggest, I don't know if it's a character flaw or a blessing, is I don't like being below average at things that I do. So, some people then just don't do it. I want to keep doing it and improve until I'm at least average at it. I don't want to be bad at anything, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I don't know. But I'm the opposite. I am one that says, if you enjoy it, who cares? Like, even if you stink at singing, like, still join the church choir. Like,
are you going to start singing to show us what you mean by that? Is that okay? No, I can't put you on the spot like that. But I like the seasonality thing, because I will tell you, I do have, like, I just kind of think about clients as you're saying that. I have a couple clients that are hardcore, would golf every day. That's what they love doing. God bless. But I could see switching from, say, a retirement or working, doing the same thing every day, to retiring and now doing this hobby for 4 or 5 hours a day, that you could get kind of burnt out on it no matter how much you like it. So I really like the idea of like a seasonality to what you're doing, especially if you have something like golf or
gardening
outside of this region of the country. You probably only do it 6 months of the year, and then gardening, or doing something that you do in the winter that you don't do in the summers. I think that's a really cool way to look at it.
Yeah, or I paint, and I took a painting class for an entire fall semester, which was great, because now I wasn't painting at home alone. I was painting in a class structure with other people, and it made it different. It got me excited and learn new things. So I think there's a real aspect of that should not be overlooked. So
Nice.
yeah. So I mean, we could talk about hobbies all day, and I think most people have them, but I think it's an important part of retirement planning that can be overlooked and should not be. So a lot of people focus, rightly so, on the financial aspect. I mean, that is the primary part of retirement, right? But once you have reached that point, it can be like a cliff, right? Like, oh no, what do I focus on now? And so I think people need to take the time. This is the homework part of our podcast. People should take time before they retire and put some thought into how they'd like to spend their time, and different kinds of hobbies, and try them out, and write down everything you've wanted to try, and then go out and figure out a way to do it until you find at least 3.6 in order to be happy. But so go out and try do things, and really take that part of retirement planning into consideration.
Yeah, I think you're right. In the conversations that I have with people, obviously we focus on the financial part. We focus on and I wouldn't call them hobbies, but like the desirable things, like, oh, I want to travel. Oh, I want to go see my grandkids once a quarter. So, I'm going to go to California or wherever they are. Great. But the day-to-day, I think, really doesn't hit people until they do retire, and then they're like, great, I did my honeydew list, but now you have, especially if you're married, you have two people just staring at each other now that used to not see each other. Could you imagine if I was home all the time? 40,
We're gonna
50
need
hours
more
a week.
hobbies.
Yeah, you need a lot more hobbies. Got to get it. And by the way, those hobbies can be together. I'm all for couples having hobbies that are separate from each other. You notice we talked about ours. I don't really paint. I'll sit there and putz with you every now and then. You don't do nerd night with me. Like, I used to play a lot of poker, and I don't play as much anymore, but that's an individual hobby. I love having that combination of both. And I think you're absolutely right. It's something to think about and prep
And plan
as
for.
you're getting close. Yeah, as you're getting close to. So, excellent. That was a lot of fun to talk about. I don't want to cut you off. Is there anything else you had on your mind? I'm kind of letting you drive here. So.
No, I think that's everything I wanted to cover about hobbies. Is how
Okay.
You should have a couple variable ones. They should involve a couple different aspects of thinking or active or whatever, and try them all out. Figure out what's best for you.
Can we summarize that again? So it was thinking, active. What were the other ones?
Creative
and
social.
And social. So you should have two of those four. And you said try to find 3.6. Try to find four things that 3 to 4 that. But if you just have like one, like say somebody I know that just loves golf and that's all he does, they show that those people in retirement are less happy because they only have one of these things that they have as a hobby. That's interesting. Well, thank you, Becky. That was really thoughtful and thought-provoking.
It was from my my perspective. It was interesting. You are actually making me think about things in the future that I really wasn't thinking about.
It worked.
So
Another person talking about how great Becky is, and Becky's making them think about stuff, and I'm not the beauty or the brains. What am I doing here? This is
well, you know what you can do, Nick? You can remind people where they can find you.
Oh, excellent. Thank you for my little carrot there. So you can find us on the website, sunrisewealthadvisors.com. On there, we have a podcast section, so you can listen to all these episodes, but we also have resources from the previous episodes. Could all be found there. There's also, if you have any questions or anything, there's all these little boxes on there. You can ask a question. It comes right to me and my team.
All right. And Becky, what do you have lined up for the next podcast?
So tied to this topic, our next podcast is going to be kind of about your identity outside of your job title and how that's a big change.
That is interesting. That's an interesting topic. I never thought about that either. So that's good.
I'll tell you
Looking
right now,
forward to
RJ,
that.
when you meet someone for the first time, what's like the first question anybody asks each other? They go, "Oh, what do you do for a living?"
Right.
Yeah.
And-
So we're going to talk about that more on the
Yeah.
next episode. So
Yeah. And both my wife and I have the same answer. We work in radio.
Yeah.
So that's how that goes. And then we get all sorts of questions about that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's interesting. All right. Well, we're looking forward to your next podcast. And thank you for listening to today's Can I Retire Now podcast. And until next time, for Nick and Becky, I'm RJ Malik.